Do you know how much your life is worth? The man in the black suit asked that question as everyone in the room stared at me. I thought it was a joke. Then someone announced a number. $5 million. My name had just become part of a deal I did not understand. I was Emma Brooks, a girl working 2 part-time jobs just to keep my apartment. Yet somehow one of the most powerful men in the city had spent millions to bring me back under his protection. The headlines exploded overnight. People said the Mafia Boss had bought a poor girl. People said I belonged to him now. They were all wrong. I stormed into his office the next morning. Floor-to-ceiling windows. City skyline. Luxury everywhere. Alexander Hayes stood quietly beside the glass. Why? I demanded. Why spend that kind of money on me? He looked at me for a long moment before answering. Because some debts can never be repaid. That only made me angrier. I refused his apartment. Refused his security team. Refused every offer he made. But then I found something strange. Hidden in his office was an old photograph. In it stood a young woman smiling beside Alexander many years ago. My heart stopped when I realized who she was. My mother. The mother I lost when I was 16. That night I confronted him again. How do you know her? His face changed for the first time. Not like a mafia boss. Not like a powerful man. Like someone carrying a wound for years. Then he handed me a letter. One written by my mother before she died. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first sentence changed everything. If you are reading this, it means Alexander finally found you. I looked up in shock. But before I could ask another question, Alexander revealed the secret he had hidden for more than a decade. And the truth was far bigger than the money. The first time I heard my name attached to a price tag, I thought someone was joking. I still remember the sound of laughter in that room. Expensive laughter. The kind that came from people who had never worried about rent, overdue bills, or choosing between groceries and electricity. I was carrying a tray of drinks through a private charity event downtown when I heard someone say my name. At first, I ignored it. Emma Brooks was not exactly an uncommon name. But then I heard it again. And this time every conversation around me seemed to stop. I glanced toward the center of the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. A string quartet played softly near the stage. Wealth filled every corner of the room. Yet every eye was suddenly focused on a single table. I should have walked away. Instead, I listened. $5 million. The number floated through the crowd like a shockwave. My grip tightened around the tray. $5 million for what? A man standing near the table shook his head in disbelief. Another laughed nervously. Then someone repeated my name again. My stomach dropped. I almost dropped the tray. Before I could understand what was happening, a woman beside me whispered, "He actually did it." Who? I asked. She looked toward the far side of the ballroom. Alexander Hayes. The name alone changed the atmosphere. Even I knew who he was. Everyone did. One of the most powerful men in the city. Wealthy. Untouchable. Mysterious. People rarely spoke about him above a whisper. Yet somehow his name was now connected to mine. I tried to approach the table, but security quietly redirected guests away from the area. Whatever had happened, nobody wanted outsiders involved. By the time my shift ended 3 hours later, rumors were spreading everywhere. Every version sounded more ridiculous than the last. Some claimed Alexander had purchased property connected to my family. Others insisted he had paid off a debt. One rumor even suggested he had spent millions simply to locate me. None of it made sense. I lived in a tiny apartment above a laundromat. My car barely started half the time. There was nothing about me worth $5 million. The next morning, life became even stranger. I opened my apartment door and nearly froze. A black luxury sedan was parked directly across the street. Two professionally dressed men stood beside it. The moment they saw me, they approached. "Miss Brooks?" one asked politely. "Yes?" He handed me an envelope. Thick cream-colored paper. My name written in elegant handwriting. "Mr. Hayes would like to meet with you." My pulse immediately quickened. "Why?" The man offered a respectful smile. "He said you would have many questions." I stared at the envelope. Everything inside me said not to open it. Not to get involved. Not to step into a world that clearly did not belong to me. But curiosity can be stronger than fear. Slowly, I broke the seal. Inside was a single card. An address. A time. And one handwritten sentence. The moment I read it, the air seemed to leave my lungs. Because written beneath the invitation were words that made absolutely no sense. "I promised your mother I would find you." Some promises survive longer than the people who make them. I stared at the handwritten sentence for nearly a minute before realizing I had stopped breathing. My mother had been gone for 8 years. 8 years. Yet somehow one of the most powerful men in the city was claiming he had made a promise to her. None of it made sense. The black sedan waited quietly across the street while questions raced through my mind. Every instinct told me to throw the invitation away and pretend none of this was happening. But another part of me could not ignore it. My mother had never spoken about a man named Alexander Hayes. Not once. And yet he knew enough about her to write those words. That afternoon, I found myself standing in front of a glass tower overlooking downtown. The building seemed to touch the clouds. People in expensive suits moved through the lobby with purpose. I felt completely out of place. A receptionist greeted me immediately. She already knew my name. That unsettled me more than anything. Within minutes, I was escorted to a private elevator that carried me toward the highest floor. The doors opened into silence. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the entire city below. Sunlight reflected across polished marble and dark wood. Everything felt impossibly elegant. Then I saw him. Alexander Hayes stood near the windows with his hands behind his back. He did not turn around immediately. For several seconds, he simply stared out at the skyline. When he finally faced me, I understood why people spoke about him differently. It was not fear. It was presence. He carried himself like a man accustomed to responsibility. A man who had spent years making difficult decisions. His expression remained calm. "Emma." Hearing my name from him felt strange. Personal. Familiar. "You wanted to see me?" I asked. I wanted to explain. I crossed my arms. "Then explain why people are saying you spent $5 million because of me." His eyes held mine for a moment. "Because they only know part of the story." That answer immediately irritated me. "Then tell me the rest." Instead of responding, Alexander walked toward a cabinet and removed a small wooden box. The box looked old. Worn by time. Carefully preserved. He placed it on a table between us. "Your mother gave me this 15 years ago." My heartbeat quickened. Slowly, I opened the box. Inside were photographs. Old photographs. Some showed my mother when she was young. Others showed places I did not recognize. Then I found one that made my chest tighten. It was a picture of me. I could not have been older than 10. My mother stood beside me, smiling. I looked up immediately. "How did you get this?" Alexander remained quiet for a moment. "Your mother sent it to me." The room suddenly felt smaller. "Why?" His expression softened slightly. "Because she wanted me to know you were safe." My thoughts became tangled. Nothing fit together. Nothing felt logical. "Who were you to her?" For the first time, Alexander hesitated. "Not long. Just enough for me to notice." Then he answered quietly. Someone who owed her everything. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. This did not sound like a powerful businessman protecting his reputation. It sounded like a man carrying a debt that never left him. Before I could ask another question, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. The calm expression vanished instantly. Not fear. Concern. Real concern. He ignored the call, but seconds later another message appeared. Then another. His jaw tightened. Something was wrong. I noticed immediately. Alexander looked toward me. Then toward the photographs inside the box. Finally, he made a decision. He opened a drawer and removed a sealed envelope. Across the front, written in handwriting I recognized instantly, were 3 words that stopped my heart. For Emma only. My hands would not stop shaking as I stared at the envelope. The handwriting belonged to my mother. There was no doubt. I had seen it on birthday cards, grocery lists, and notes she used to leave on the refrigerator when I was a child. 8 years had passed since I lost her, yet somehow her words had found their way back to me. The room felt completely silent. Even the city beyond the glass seemed distant. Alexander stood across from me without saying a word. He was giving me a choice. Open it or walk away. Slowly, I slid a finger beneath the seal. The paper inside was slightly yellowed with age. Carefully folded. Carefully preserved. As though someone had spent years protecting it. I unfolded the letter and began to read. My dearest Emma. The moment I saw those words, my chest tightened. Tears threatened to appear instantly. I had not heard her voice in years, yet somehow I could hear every word exactly as she would have spoken it. If you are reading this, it means Alexander finally found you. I stopped breathing. The same sentence from the short video replayed inside my mind. My eyes moved down the page. There are things I never told you because I wanted you to have a normal life. There are people who helped me when I had nothing. One of those people is Alexander Hayes. I looked up immediately. Alexander remained still. His expression revealed nothing. I continued reading. Many years ago, before you were born, I saved someone who believed his life no longer mattered. He spent years trying to repay a debt I never wanted repaid. I asked him for only one thing. If anything ever happened to me, find my daughter. Make sure she is safe. My vision blurred. I blinked several times before continuing. Promise me she will always know she is loved. The letter ended shortly afterward. Simple. Honest. Heartbreaking. I lowered the page slowly. Every assumption I had made about Alexander began to crack. For days I had believed he was trying to control my future. Now I was staring at proof that my mother had trusted him long before I even knew his name. Why did she never tell me? I whispered. Alexander walked toward the window. For a moment, he seemed older. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone carrying memories that never stopped following him. Because she wanted you to grow up without my world touching yours. His answer felt genuine. Then why find me now? I asked. This time, he did not answer immediately. His phone vibrated again on the desk. Another message. Then another. Whatever had been troubling him earlier had clearly not gone away. Finally, he turned toward me. Because someone else started looking for you first. Every muscle in my body tightened. What does that mean? Alexander picked up the phone and stared at the screen. His expression darkened. Not with anger. With concern. Real concern. Then he handed the device to me. A photograph filled the screen. The image showed my apartment building taken less than an hour earlier. My apartment window was clearly visible. Beneath the photograph was a single message from an unknown sender. We know where she is. There is a special kind of fear that arrives when you realize someone has been watching your life without your knowledge. I stared at the photograph on Alexander's phone and felt my stomach drop. My apartment building looked exactly as it had that morning. The cracked brick walls. The narrow fire escape. The small window above the laundromat that led to my apartment. Nothing seemed unusual. Yet the message beneath the image changed everything. We know where she is. 4 simple words. 4 words that suddenly made the city feel much smaller. Who sent this? I asked quietly. Alexander took the phone back. I do not know. It was the first uncertain answer he had given me all day. That alone made me nervous. He looked at the screen again before setting it aside. But I know why. My heartbeat quickened. Then tell me. Alexander walked toward the window overlooking downtown. The late afternoon sun painted the skyline in gold. For a moment, he seemed lost in thought. Then he spoke. Your mother protected something valuable. I frowned. Money? He shook his head. Something far more important. The answer only created more questions. Before I could ask another one, a woman entered the office carrying several folders. She appeared to be in her 50s. Professional. Confident. The kind of person who missed nothing. Her eyes briefly met mine before turning toward Alexander. Everything is prepared. He nodded. Thank you, Margaret. She placed the folders on his desk and left without another word. The moment the door closed, Alexander opened one of them. Inside were documents. Property records. Financial reports. Old correspondence. I immediately recognized my mother's name appearing again and again throughout the pages. What is all this? I asked. The reason someone spent years searching for you. The answer sent a chill through me. Alexander handed me a single document. At first glance, it looked ordinary. Then I noticed the date. 15 years earlier. Long before my mother's death. Long before I understood anything about the adult world. My eyes moved across the page. It described ownership rights connected to a large parcel of undeveloped land outside the city. The property itself was worth millions. Maybe more. Yet my mother was listed as a beneficiary. I looked up in confusion. This cannot be right. Alexander remained calm. It is. My mother never mentioned any of this. Because she never intended to use it. That sounded exactly like her. My mother had always cared more about people than money. Still, something felt wrong. What does any of this have to do with me? Alexander hesitated. Then he opened another folder and slid it across the desk. This one contained photographs. Recent photographs. My pulse accelerated immediately. Every image showed me. Walking to work. Leaving the grocery store. Getting into my car. Nothing threatening. Nothing dangerous. Yet seeing my ordinary life captured through someone else's lens made my skin crawl. Someone has been tracking you for months, Alexander said quietly. Why? His expression hardened. Because when your mother died, ownership transferred. The room suddenly felt colder. My eyes returned to the property documents. Then back to the photographs. Then to Alexander. Finally, the pieces began connecting. You mean? He nodded once. Whether you know it or not, Emma, you inherited something people have been trying to find for years. Before I could respond, another message appeared on his phone. This time there was no photograph. No threat. Only a single sentence. The girl knows too much now. The moment I read the message, a strange silence settled over the room. The girl knows too much now. 6 words. That was all. Yet they carried enough weight to make every question inside my head feel suddenly urgent. Alexander stared at the screen for several seconds before locking the phone and placing it face down on the desk. His expression remained calm, but I was beginning to recognize the difference between calm and controlled. This was controlled. How long had these messages been coming? I asked. Long enough. That was not an answer. Alexander. He looked at me. 4 months. My stomach tightened. Months. While I had been working double shifts, worrying about rent, and trying to keep my life together, people I had never met had apparently been watching me. The realization was unsettling. I walked toward the window and looked down at the city far below. Everything seemed normal. Cars moved through intersections. People hurried along sidewalks. Somewhere out there, strangers knew things about my life that I did not even know myself. Why did my mother never tell me any of this? I whispered. Alexander remained silent for a moment. Because she believed the less you knew, the safer you would be. I almost laughed. The irony felt overwhelming. That plan did not work very well. A faint expression crossed his face. Not quite a smile. Not quite sadness. No. It did not. The honesty surprised me. For the first time, he sounded less like a powerful man with answers and more like someone carrying regrets. Then there was a knock on the office door. Margaret entered again. This time her face looked unusually serious. She handed Alexander a tablet without speaking. He reviewed something on the screen, and the controlled expression returned immediately. What happened? I asked. Alexander exchanged a brief glance with Margaret. Neither seemed eager to answer. That alone told me the situation was worsening. Finally, Margaret spoke. Someone accessed public records connected to your mother's estate this morning. My pulse accelerated. Is that unusual? Extremely. Alexander set the tablet down. Those records have been dormant for years. Another piece of the puzzle slid into place. Whoever was searching for me was no longer guessing. They were moving. Following a trail. Looking for something. What exactly did my mother leave behind? I asked. Alexander walked toward a secure cabinet built into the wall. After entering a code, he removed a thick folder. Unlike the others, this one appeared older. Protected. Important. He placed it carefully on the desk between us. This is everything your mother asked me to protect. My eyes widened. Inside were legal documents, photographs, letters, and handwritten notes. Years of history preserved in a single folder. Then something caught my attention. A map. Folded between several pages. I carefully unfolded it. My heartbeat quickened immediately. The map showed the same property listed in the inheritance documents. But someone had marked a specific location with red ink. What is this? I asked. Alexander stared at the map. For the first time all day, genuine surprise appeared in his eyes. I have never seen that before. The answer stunned me. What do you mean? That mark was not there the last time I opened this file. The room went silent. Slowly, both of us looked back at the folder. Someone had accessed it. Recently. Someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. Then a small folded note slipped from between the pages and landed on the desk. My breath caught. The handwriting was unmistakable. It belonged to my mother. Across the front, written in faded blue ink, were 5 words that changed everything. Do not trust everyone, Emma. Sometimes the most frightening warning is the one left by someone who loved you. I stared at the note for several seconds without moving. Do not trust everyone, Emma. The handwriting belonged to my mother. The faded blue ink. The shape of each letter. There was no doubt. Yet the message created a problem I had not considered before. If my mother felt the need to leave that warning, then she had known something was wrong long before she died. Slowly, I looked up from the note and glanced around the office. For the first time, uncertainty crept into my thoughts. The room suddenly felt different. Not unsafe. Just complicated. Alexander stood across the desk studying the map. Margaret remained near the door. Both had helped me more in a single day than anyone else had in years. Yet my mother's warning echoed relentlessly in my mind. Do not trust everyone. Not everyone. Which meant some people could be trusted. Others could not. The question was who? Alexander carefully picked up the map again. His eyes focused on the red mark. This location is approximately 70 miles outside the city, he said. What is there? I asked. He shook his head. Nothing that should matter. That answer immediately caught my attention. Should matter? For a brief moment, he hesitated. Then he pulled another document from the folder. It contained photographs of an old lakeside property. Small. Remote. Forgotten. The place looked abandoned. Years ago, your mother visited this location several times. My pulse quickened. Why? I never knew. The honesty surprised me. Until now, Alexander had seemed to possess answers to everything. Seeing a mystery he could not explain made the situation feel even more real. Margaret stepped closer and examined the photographs. There are maintenance records, she said quietly. Someone continued paying property taxes for years. Alexander immediately looked toward her. Who? Margaret reviewed another page. Her expression changed slightly. The payments were anonymous. Silence filled the office. Anonymous payments. Secret locations. Hidden inheritance records. Nothing about my mother's life seemed simple anymore. Then something else caught my eye. Tucked inside the folder was a faded photograph I had not noticed earlier. I carefully picked it up. The image showed my mother standing beside a lake many years ago. She looked younger. Happier. Standing beside her was a man I did not recognize. He appeared to be in his 20s. Tall. Dark-haired. Smiling directly at the camera. My eyes immediately moved toward Alexander. His reaction shocked me. He looked genuinely startled. You know him? I asked. Alexander slowly nodded. I knew who he became. The answer made no sense. What does that mean? For several seconds, he seemed unsure whether to continue. Then he pointed toward the photograph. That man disappeared 12 years ago. A chill moved through me. Disappeared? Without explanation. The room grew quiet again. My eyes returned to the image. There was something strangely familiar about the man's face. Something I could not quite place. Then realization struck me. My heartbeat accelerated instantly. I had seen him before. Not in real life. In another photograph. One sitting inside the wooden box Alexander had shown me earlier. The same man appeared in the background of a picture taken years apart. Which meant he had remained connected to my mother's life far longer than anyone realized. Before I could say anything, Alexander's phone rang. This time he answered immediately. He listened silently for several seconds. Then his expression hardened. When the call ended, he looked directly at me. Someone just broke into your apartment. The room went completely still. Then he added 7 words that changed everything once again. And they only took one thing away. The thing about ordinary lives is that you never realize which object matters until it disappears. I stared at Alexander after he ended the call. My mind immediately jumped to countless possibilities. My laptop. My wallet. Old photographs. Personal documents. None of them seemed important enough to connect with everything that had happened over the last 24 hours. Yet Alexander's expression told me otherwise. Whatever had been taken mattered. What did they steal? I asked. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he walked toward the desk and opened the folder containing my mother's records. His eyes moved across several pages before stopping on a photograph. Then he looked back at me. Tell me about the necklace. I frowned. What necklace? The silver necklace your mother gave you. My heart skipped. Instantly, I reached toward my neck out of habit. Empty. Of course it was empty. I had stopped wearing the necklace years ago because I was afraid of losing it. It sat inside a small wooden box in my apartment bedroom. Or at least it had. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. No, I whispered. Alexander nodded slowly. He already knew. That was the only item removed. I sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Of all the things someone could have taken, why choose a simple necklace? It was not expensive. It had no diamonds. No gold. Just a small silver pendant my mother had given me on my 16th birthday. I had always believed it carried sentimental value and nothing more. Alexander sat across from me. Your mother never explained where it came from? I shook my head. She only told me to keep it safe. The moment I said those words, both of us fell silent. Keep it safe. Suddenly the sentence sounded very different. Not sentimental. Intentional. Margaret stepped forward and opened another section of the file. After several moments of searching, she pulled out a faded photograph. My eyes widened immediately. The image showed my mother standing beside the mysterious man near the lakeside property. Around her neck hung the exact same necklace. That cannot be a coincidence, Margaret said quietly. Alexander agreed. It is not. The room felt increasingly connected by invisible threads. The lakeside property. The anonymous payments. The inheritance records. The missing necklace. The man who disappeared 12 years ago. Everything seemed to point toward the same hidden story. Then Alexander placed another photograph beside the first one. This image had been taken years later. My mother stood alone this time. Yet the necklace remained visible. Carefully positioned outside her jacket, almost as if she wanted it noticed. She was leaving clues, I said softly. Alexander looked at me. I think she was trying to make sure the right person could find the truth. Before anyone could respond, Margaret's phone rang. She listened for less than 30 seconds before ending the call. Her face immediately changed. We have another problem. My pulse quickened. Alexander stood. What happened? Margaret looked directly at him. The property taxes were not the only payments. She placed a printed document on the desk. Someone has been depositing money into a private trust fund for 15 years. I stared at the numbers. The total amount was staggering. Millions of dollars. More than I had ever imagined seeing in one place. My hands began shaking again. Who owns it? Margaret's eyes moved toward me. According to the records, Emma Brooks is the sole beneficiary. The room went silent. Then Alexander noticed something hidden near the bottom of the document. A handwritten note scanned into the records decades earlier. My mother had signed it herself. Beneath her signature were 7 words that instantly changed the meaning of everything. The key was never the money. The most dangerous truths are the ones hidden in plain sight for years. I could not stop staring at the sentence beneath my mother's signature. The key was never the money. Millions of dollars sat inside a trust fund carrying my name, yet my mother had gone out of her way to tell me the money was not what mattered. Which meant everything I thought I understood was wrong. Alexander leaned back in his chair and studied the document carefully. Your mother knew exactly what she was doing, he said quietly. She wanted people to focus on the money. I looked up. As a distraction? He nodded. A very effective one. Margaret began sorting through the remaining papers. The office had grown darker as evening settled across the city. The lights below the tower slowly illuminated one by one, turning the skyline into a sea of gold. Yet none of us paid attention to the view anymore. Every answer seemed to create 2 new questions. My eyes drifted back toward the map with the red mark near the lakeside property. Suddenly the pieces felt connected. The trust fund. The necklace. The anonymous payments. The hidden location. The missing man from the photographs. They were not separate mysteries. They were part of the same story. The necklace, I said suddenly. Both Alexander and Margaret looked at me. If the money was never the key, then maybe the necklace was. Alexander's expression sharpened immediately. Explain. I stood and walked toward the desk. Someone broke into my apartment and ignored everything else. They left cash, electronics, documents. They only took the necklace. If they wanted money, they could have taken things worth selling. But they did not. Margaret slowly nodded. Because they already knew what they were looking for. A chill ran through me. For the first time, I felt as though I was thinking the way my mother would have wanted me to think. Not emotionally. Logically. Following the clues. Alexander opened a secure database on his computer and enlarged one of the photographs. The image showed my mother wearing the necklace years earlier. We studied it carefully. Then he froze. Wait. He zoomed in further. My heartbeat accelerated. Hidden along the edge of the pendant was a tiny symbol. So small it was almost invisible. I have seen that before, Alexander said. He immediately opened another file and searched through dozens of scanned documents. After several moments, he found what he was looking for. The same symbol appeared in the corner of an old survey map connected to the lakeside property. Silence filled the room. The symbol connected everything. The necklace and the property were linked. My mother had been leaving clues all along. Margaret quickly compared both images side by side. It cannot be a coincidence. It is not, Alexander agreed. Then his expression changed. He was seeing something else. Something we had missed. Slowly, he opened one final document buried deep inside the records. The page contained a handwritten note from over 15 years earlier. My mother had signed it. Beneath her signature was a name. Not Alexander. Not mine. The name from the photograph. The man who disappeared. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Alexander exhaled slowly. I do not think he disappeared. My pulse quickened. What do you mean? He looked directly at me. I think he changed his identity. The room seemed to tilt. Suddenly the mysterious man was no longer part of the past. He could still be alive. He could still be connected to everything happening now. Then Margaret's computer emitted a notification. A new message had arrived through one of the monitored channels. Alexander opened it immediately. There was no text. Only a photograph. The image showed a remote lakeside cabin beneath a cloudy sky. My heart nearly stopped. Hanging from a nail beside the cabin door was my stolen necklace. And beneath the photograph were 4 words that changed everything again. Come alone if possible. The truth rarely arrives the way you expect. For a long time, I stared at the photograph on the screen. The lakeside cabin. The stolen necklace. The message beneath it. Come alone if possible. Whoever sent it knew exactly how to get my attention. They wanted answers to feel close enough to touch. Alexander studied the image in silence. Then he looked at me. You are not going alone. It was not a command. It was a promise. Hours later, we stood outside the cabin as dawn painted the lake silver. The property looked exactly like the photographs. Small. Quiet. Forgotten by time. Wind moved gently through the trees. The entire place felt less like a destination and more like a memory someone had preserved for years. My heart pounded as we approached the door. It was already open. Inside, sunlight spilled across old wooden floors. Dust floated through the air. On a table near the window sat the necklace. The same silver pendant my mother had given me. I picked it up carefully. The metal felt cold against my skin. Then I noticed something unusual. Along the back edge of the pendant was a tiny hidden latch. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper no larger than a postage stamp. A set of coordinates had been written in my mother's handwriting. Beneath them was a single sentence. The truth belongs to Emma. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then a voice came from the far side of the room. She always was clever. I turned instantly. An older man stepped from the shadows near the fireplace. His hair was gray now. His face carried decades of history. Yet I recognized him immediately. The man from the photograph. The man everyone believed had disappeared. He smiled sadly. "Hello, Emma." My pulse raced. "Who are you?" His eyes softened. "An old friend of your mother." Alexander remained calm, but I noticed genuine surprise in his expression. The man walked toward the window overlooking the lake. "Your mother saved more lives than she ever admitted. Including mine. Including his." He nodded toward Alexander. Suddenly everything began connecting. The photographs. The trust fund. The property. The promise. The money was never meant to make anyone rich, the man continued. It was created to protect people. Your mother knew that someday others would come searching for it. That is why she hid the real secret. He pointed toward the coordinates inside the necklace. That location contains records proving ownership belongs exactly where she intended. I looked at Alexander. For the first time since meeting him, I understood everything. The millions of dollars. The years of searching. The protection. None of it had been about control. None of it had been about possession. He had not spent millions to buy me back. He had spent years honoring a promise he could never forget. A promise made to the woman who once changed his life. As sunlight filled the cabin, I felt something unexpected. Peace. The mystery that had followed me for weeks finally settled into clarity. My mother had not left me wealth. She had left me truth. And standing beside the lake, surrounded by the people she trusted most, I finally understood the lesson hidden inside every clue she left behind. Real value is never measured by money. It is measured by the promises people keep long after everyone else has forgotten them.